All right, hi students, welcome to another J It's My Job video. Today we are in session 3 talking about interviewing for a job. I've got 3 wonderful volunteers with us today from a major accounting firm based here in Middle Tennessee. So would each of you go ahead and introduce yourselves for us? Tell the students a little bit about your specific role with your firm.
Hi, my name is Kylie. I work for an accounting firm in Nashville, like Catherine said. Basically, I work on the audit side, which means that we look at companies' financial statements and we ensure that what they're providing to the public is accurate. And so we help by providing somewhat of a level of comfort to investors that companies' financial statements are accurate.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily. I also work on the audit side. I'm actually on Kylie's team. So we do a lot of basically just what she said, helping to provide assurance that the financial statements are accurate for investors and stockholders.
Hello, I'm Zach. I'm on the strategy consulting side of the business. So we work with large companies and help them look at their strategic vision and what they want to do as far as go-to-market strategies, different transactional events that they might have happen in their business to grow.
Well, students, I'm going to give you an interesting statistic that you may have heard in your lessons. But according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the average American holds 10 different jobs before they are 40. And that number is expected to increase. So students, as you consider, the jobs that you are going to apply for, you'll soon realize that there's a lot of paperwork involved, a lot of filling out of applications, writing of cover letters, and going to interviews. And so it's really helpful to have some best practices in mind. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So if the 3 of you could each take turns just telling me a little bit about either your current role or previous role, just how did you first learn about the company? What steps did you take to apply? How did you prepare for the interview?
I can go ahead and start since I think I am probably the closest to having interviewed most recently. I learned about this accounting firm through an internship, which I also learned about through a friend who had worked at the company, or still does work at the company. And the process for me pretty much looked like applying with my resume, writing a cover letter, and then interviewing. And the way that I really prepared for this interview and pretty much all interviews that I've ever done is actually coming up with, I write out a list of all of the major projects that I've worked on, any big things that I've done, and I write them all down on a piece of paper and think about a few skills that they highlight of mine. So maybe X project shows that I'm adaptable and a team player. And just kind of go through that list and thinking about, okay, these are the skills that are being shown from this project. And then specifically for this job, I had a friend mock interview me. So just say, Kylie and I, we're not friends anymore for the next 30 minutes. We're now interviewer and interviewee, and just go through start to finish an interview, just to get more comfortable with the process and what it'll look like, because it can be a little bit awkward or uncomfortable the first time you do it. So it really helped for me to get more comfortable with the process. So that's how I went through that.
Zach or Kylie, anything different from your experience, either with this job or a different job or internship?
In the past, I've had a lot of different experiences. I worked in industry before I came over into professional services. So I can tell you every interview and every situation is a little bit different. And as we think about if we were to hire someone today in the COVID environment, that would even be more different than it is normally, where in the past it may be a physical in-person interview that may change to a different format, whether it's a phone interview or an interview on something like Zoom here. So one of the keys I would say is just to kind of be prepared for what that interview process looks like. And there's a lot of resources online you can go and look at what companies' interview structures are like, and really some good resources out there on YouTube and different places where you can understand what kind of questions you're going to be asked. And like Emily said, be ready to practice and mock up that interview setting, whether it's with a parent or a friend. All those are things that can really help you out in the interview process.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And the only other thing I think I would add would be know your company. So wherever you want to apply, take a look at their website, know their products, know their services, know their mission statement, and, understand where their goals and values align with your potential role and the skills that you could bring to that company.
In thinking about the interviews that you've had, have you ever encountered a really unexpected interview question, something that despite your preparation kind of threw you off a little bit? And can you remember any specifics in an occasion like that?
I can start with this one. So in one of my interviews, I was asked a critical thinking question, and it was as simple as they gave me this scenario. They said, okay, you have a cake and you get 3 cuts to the cake and you have to have 8 pieces at the end. How do you do it? And, looking back, I think the question was meant to just see how I would respond in that moment and to see how my thinking skills would, how I would be able to provide an answer in that under pressure. And what I did was I just paused for a minute and I thought about it. And I think that's something that is encouraged to do in an interview when you're not sure of an answer. And I did get it right. So you just cut it horizontally and vertically and then straight through the middle. But I think at the end of the day, it wouldn't have been if I knew the answer to the question. It would have just been how I responded and reacted in a scenario when the answer is not straightforward. So that was kind of a interesting question that I will never forget.
Yeah, I'd say that that is one of the keys to all interview processes, just to be prepared for anything. I mean, the cake question you brought up, Kylie, or the infamous "sell me this pen," which a lot of sales interviews will ask. There's always some type of curveball that they can throw at you, the interviewer. And I think the key is just to be ready to react and not freeze up. Be able to tell a good story, whether it's something you can speak to versus more of a quantitative question like Kylie was talking about with the cake. So yeah, just be prepared for anything and be ready to react on your feet.
And I think one thing that Kylie mentioned that is really helpful is just taking a few minutes to collect your thoughts is really okay. And I've even said in interviews, that's a really good question. Give me a few seconds to think about it and compose myself and just really think through what I want to say and the best way to attack either if it's a functional scenario type question like Kylie mentioned, or if it's tell me about a time when you XYZ, and just saying, that's a good question. I would like to think about it, because your interviewer really wants to hear a good, solid answer. And so if that means you need to take 5 or 10 seconds to compose yourself, that's completely fine.
What other advice or insight would you give to high school students as they're thinking about the interview process, more likely for internships or even jobs in their post-high school years and then ahead to their professional careers after college or some type of training, or even for those immediately entering the workforce? What's one additional piece of advice regarding the interview process that you'd recommend based on your own experience?
I'd say from a strategic standpoint, and that's where I view most of my problems here in the professional world. Think about, if you know what you want to be when you grow up, you know that there's a certain few steps you need to complete, whether it be something in college or some type of learning. And everything's a little bit different today and in the world we live in than it was when our parents were in high school, right? So maybe it's not the traditional college, degree trajectory that someone would go on. Maybe there's other ways to fill those gaps in your learning. But think about that as you're taking your jobs during high school, after high school. What can I get out of those, the jobs that are available to me? Maybe I select one that gives me a leg up on the competition on what I want to be in the future, and use that kind of as a springboard to get where you want to be someday. Don't just take the first job that's available. Think about it in the big picture and how that applies to your career versus just holding a job.
One thing that I would say is just to remember that an interviewer is learning about your skills and how you would fit into a role and whether that's a good match, but they're also learning about your personality, what you might like, what you might not like, and things like that. So try not to let nerves keep you from being able to express who you are as a person in that interview and letting that come through, because that plays a big role in finding a good fit with a role.
I think they covered it. I guess the only thing I might add is just echoing what Emily said, be confident and know your brand. So know what you have to offer and, walk in there confidently and, make good eye contact. And I know it's a little different with distant learning times, but just, be confident in what you have to offer and what's on your resume, and you'll do great.
And even if you don't get the job, the interview experience is certainly something that can be helpful. You learn from it, and you'll have lots of interviews where you may or may not get the job, but look at those as opportunities to better yourself and how you present yourself for those future opportunities. At this point, students, you're going to refer to your brag sheet worksheet for the remainder of this session, and your teachers will take it from here. But Zach, Kylie, Emily, thank you for being here today, and students, we'll see you again for the next episode sometime soon.